Hi everyone, it's James here. Hope you're all well. Welcome to another Vinyl Finds video. Going to try and show you what I've been buying kind of over the summer, really. So in the background you might be able to faintly hear this record. This is Slave and The Hardness of the World. This is not a band that I knew anything about. I found this on the Heightside Market stand in Lancaster when I was out digging with John Bellamy over the summer. I think I'd seen somebody else showing a Slave record and I can't for the life of me remember who it was, and I put it on the Facebook group and everything to try and find out who it was who showed it, and nobody came forward, but somebody has shown an album by this band in the last few months, so if it's you, can you get in touch and tell me, because I've been racking my brains trying to remember. I mean, they were a kind of, you know, funk band in the kind of Earth, Wind and Fire style, but maybe a bit less disco, a bit more funk. And this is their second album from 1977 and it got to number 67 in the US charts. It's pretty good, big lineup of musicians there, but there's two things that go against it very slightly for me. One, there's one track that has a very kind of almost prog rock keyboard solo that just goes all the way through it and gets a bit annoying, and then on the other side there's another track that has a very convoluted, kind of busy electric guitar solo, a bit like Eddie Hazel in Funkadelic, but it kind of goes on a bit too long. You can hear it's quite a lot of like fiddly widdly playing on the record, which slightly detracts from the kind of funk and the groove elements, but still it's a good listen. I'm pleased I grabbed it. So yeah, that's Slave and The Hardness of the World. Back in August I went to Alan Hughes Nostalgia Film and Music in Wrexham, a shop I've spoken about many times in my hometown. I picked up a few things there and a couple of them I've shown already, but I also grabbed this record. This is Bebop Deluxe and Sunburst Finish. This is the second record by them that I've found in the last year or so. Bill Nelson, kind of prog pop, going back to the mid-1970s. They were a kind of staple really on programmes such as Jukebox Jury in England. So it's their third album, February 1976, and it was recorded at Abbey Road, and it is a tremendous album. The more I listen to Bill Nelson, the more convinced I am that he is an absolute genius. The one thing about him, okay, it's on Harvest, is that vocally he's a little bit nondescript. You know, his vocal style is very he doesn't have much vocal charisma. You know, his vocals don't kind of leap off the record in a way that says somebody like Peter Gabriel has a very distinctive, you know, vocal sound, whereas Bill did not really have that. But what he did have in abundance is just incredible guitar chops, and I don't think there's anyone who compares to him, really. I mean, there's nobody who kind of seriously rivals him, I don't think. As a British kind of art rock guitarist, I think he's up there with Fripp. You know, in some ways he's kind of even better than David Gilmour. I think he's more versatile. He doesn't really get the credit he deserves, but some of the guitar stuff on this record, it kind of reminded me a little bit of stuff like Television almost. It's that kind of fluid, molten sound, you know. I mean, but it's his versatility which really astonishes. You know, he's at home with very lyrical, smooth, flowing stuff, but he can also do the kind of jagged rock. Brilliant musician. I mean, if you haven't heard Bebop Deluxe, you know, seek them out and listen to them, because they are a great band. I'm going to be looking out for more of their records. Okay, so also at Alan Hughes, a record that I thought was not quite as top-notch. Now, I'd already bought one album by this lot, and I'd heard about them. I'd heard about them on the VC. I'd seen people showing them. Dutch band, and I picked up one of their records. I found this one at Alan Hughes. This is Golden Earring Northeast, West and South, and this comes from 1984, and it's their 17th album. You know, incredibly prolific band. Has this inner, and let's have a look and see what's going on with the label. Carrera Records. Yeah, I mean, Golden Earring have made too many records for them to be a band that I'm going to get serious about collecting, you know what I mean? I mean, there's kind of so many of them. And judging by this one, this was kind of, I thought this was a bit ordinary. I mean, it's from the 1980s, and to be fair, it doesn't have a particularly dated sound. The guitars are quite kind of dry and crunchy, but the songwriting doesn't seem to be that inspired really. It sounds a little bit like a band on autopilot. So I might do a little bit of research on them and try and find out which are the best albums and maybe just go for those. You know, it's always a risk, isn't it, when you don't know anything about a band. You buy one record and you think it's pretty good, so then you buy another one and it's not that great, and then you start thinking, I need to do some research really to find out, which are the records that are worth picking up. But it wasn't bad, but not really essential. There is a shop, again, I've spoken about it a fair bit on my channel, Atticus Books in Lancaster, and they always have kind of interesting things interspersed amongst kind of complete crap. This is Plancksty, and this is the Plancksty collection on Polydor. And again, it's a band I've seen shown on the VC. They're a folk group. I didn't realise actually it's Christy Moore. Christy Moore formed the band along with some other musicians. They only had 3 albums: Plancksty, Well Below the Valley, and Cold Blow and The Rainy Night. And I really enjoyed this record. It seems really kind of deeply authentic. I mean, it's Irish folk, I should say. Played with great taste and sensitivity and lyricism, and just a beautiful sound. Occasionally it's a little bit, foldy-roldy kind of, folk music, but there's some lovely songs on here. I mean, I don't know the folk repertoire to know enough about these songs to tell you much about them. The Jolly Beggar Reel, Merrily Kissed the Quaker, Cliffs of Dooneen, really evocative song titles. But I was quite taken with this record, so much so that I immediately went out online and bought a CD of it for my dad for his birthday, because my dad's always on the lookout for stuff he hasn't heard before, and I just thought he would enjoy it. So that was a great find, and I will be looking out for the other albums. You can see them here, and this has got rather a nice gatefold actually. It's got all the press clippings from the band's career, and some nice blurb on the back explaining all about the group. So yeah, I was chuffed with that. I got that for £2. Okay, also from Atticus, I was very chuffed with this one, because it's not every day that I discover Hungarian psych in my local junk shop, but that is exactly what this is. When you sort of see a record, and even though you don't know anything about the band and you've never heard of them, but you can just tell from the cover that it's going to be worth checking out. Omega. I was very impressed with Martin Parrott when I met him recently at the VC meetup. I said to him, we were kind of having a little dig in this record shop, and I said, oh, I found a Hungarian psych album the other day, Martin. And he said, oh, was it Omega? I was like, yes, it was, I mean, maybe perhaps they're the only Hungarian psych artist worth knowing about. It's on Decca, and I do have a couple of factoids about this band to share with you. Omega, they sound a little bit Pink Floyd-y in the metal era. They have that kind of slow, languorous, almost plodding kind of groove, but there's a lot of kind of spaciousness in their music, some kind of nice wandering astral guitars, some quite kind of psyche vocals, a little bit almost krautrock at times. There's a kind of certain atmosphere in the record, it's head music basically. You can put the lights off and drift off to it. They had lots and lots of albums. I think what they did was they released lots of Hungarian albums in their own language, and then they also released a lot of British albums as well, in English, which were kind of patched together from the various Hungarian albums. So their discography is incredibly complicated, but they certainly seem to have had a huge amount of success. It's quite funny, it's just kind of one of those bands that you've never heard of them, and then you just kind of read up about them and discover that they're absolutely massive. So yeah, I was really pleased with that. That was £2. It's in pretty good condition. It's got a bit of tape along there, you can see, but not too bad at all. So yeah, that is, just check I've got no inner to show you there. No, that is Omega and Time Robber on Decca. Moving on, now there is a biggish charity kind kind of warehousey place just on the ring road, just outside of Lancaster, and I hardly ever go there. Last time I went there, I found a lot of country records. So I went back there thinking, maybe they'd be worth, something worth checking out. And this time, God, there were hundreds of records there. I mean, I'm talking, hundreds of classical and just kind of junk, easy listening. And I was going through them, thinking, am I going to find anything? This is the track that slightly annoys me. I'm going to turn it down a little bit. I've turned it down and I've turned the side over. That was the song that had the really annoying widdly keyboard. Anyway, so yes, in this shop that was just, boxes and boxes and boxes of stuff, I actually found 3 quite nice things. The first of them, interestingly, Graham Watson had recently sent me an Art of Noise LP. I think I'd received the parcel that morning. Very strange coincidence, because then at this big place full of crap, I found this. This is reworks of Art of Noise. Now, I've not been able to find out much about this record, but it contains some live stuff, some live tracks, Paranoia. There's this 7-inch studio version of that with Max Headroom. There's a 12-inch version of Legacy, a 12-inch version of Peter Gunn. So, it's a really interesting record to pick up. I don't know much about the kind of different lineups of Art of Noise, but this one does not feature Trevor Horn. It says, The Art of Noise Live, represented by Anne Dudley, a person whose name I can't pronounce, and Dave Bronze bass, Simon Morton percussion, and so on and so forth. So this is on China, and yeah, I mean, it's just, it's basically the Art of Noise, kind of sample heavy 80s art pop, a little bit left field, and it's good. It's got a good kind of live atmosphere to it. Art of Noise, you don't really think of them, I don't really think of them as being a kind of live band. I think of them as being a studio outfit, so I thought that was quite interesting. And then also I found this record. Now, I didn't have anything by Brenda Lee on vinyl. I have a CD best of. Really, really rate her, really love her vocal style, love her old, rock and roll sides. This record is, I think it's from 1976 on MCA, and it contains some really good kind of pop rock material. Oklahoma Superstar, Taking What I Can Get, I Let You Let Me Down Again. There's some really nice ballads and quite sensitively rendered, kind of melancholy, country-tinged pop. And I like the cover. I love the palm trees. Now, is it my imagination, or does that remind me of a Gun Club record? Answers on a postcard. But anyway, yes, I was chuffed with that. Each of these records were 50p, half a buck. This is on the Rainbow MCA. And then also lurking in that box, I found a very nice copy of Celebrate by Kool The Gang. Now, how many records did Kool The Gang have? Probably about 150. Their 12th album, released September the 29th, 1980, and it contains the song Celebrate. So it was definitely worth picking up. I didn't have anything by them in my collection apart from an MP3 best of album, so I was pleased to get that. Heightside Records in Lancaster. It's a kind of store which comes to town every so often. Well, I was with John Bellamy over the summer. We went there, had a little dig, and I picked up this record. This is Little Feat and Let It Roll. Now, I am collecting Little Feat records, got a fair few now. I could kind of tell by the back cover of this one. You know when you get these bands who make really great records in the 1970s and then they make an 80s record and they all suddenly look like that? They've got the kind of the suits and the kind of hats and the jackets, and they just kind of look like an 80s band. I'm sure Fleetwood Mac did it. I could tell from the look of this record that it wasn't going to be vintage Little Feat, and it isn't. It's not bad. I'm going to keep it. It's on Warner's because it's kind of part of the collection, but it does stray perilously close at times to Toto territory. Craig Fuller had joined the band as their kind of main singer and their songwriter. Lowell George was gone, I think, at this point. They still retained the services of the incredible drummer Richie Haywood. And you know, he is still in evidence on this record. You know, he's kind of playing some nice, tasteful funk rock grooves. So it's definitely not a bad album. It's just obviously it's not kind of up there with their best work. Then I also grabbed a copy of Get Close by the Pretenders, which I think is their fourth album, 1986. You can see the great Robbie McIntosh on the back, who went on to be in Paul McCartney's band. It's got My Baby, which is a huge hit single, and Don't Get Me Wrong. Yeah, the drummer, Blair Cunningham, he's the drummer on the Paul McCartney album Off the Ground, and he toured with the band in, whenever it was, 93, 94. This is A Cosmic Wind by Donovan. This is the first original album I have by him. I think I've got a couple of comps, maybe a Music for Pleasure one. So this is an original album, great cover. It's him kind of sat on an ocean with a strange thing like Rover from The Prisoner, big ball there, with a very cosmic looking back cover. This record was produced by Mickey Most, and I think it came out in the glam era, and it was Donovan trying to jump on that bandwagon. But it's a really great album. It's a really fun listen. I talked to Graham Watson about it. There was a track he really didn't like. It's called The Intergalactic Laxative, which has some rather kind of crude lyrics. I actually found it to be quite funny, but it's great kind of head music. It's just got that kind of hippie, trippy sound, but it's kind of been updated for the 1970s. So it's this kind of a 70s album which still retains a kind of 60s sensibility. It's on Epic, and let's see what I've got for you for this. It's his 10th album, released in March 1977, and apparently at the time it was the same year that Donovan, he was invited into the studio next door or something by Alice Cooper's guitarist while he was recording this album, and that's how he ended up singing the co-lead on Alice Cooper's $1 Billion Babies. I think that was the same year. So yeah, chuffed to get it. Sleeve is perhaps not in the best condition, but it's not bad, a bit of a cosmic looking inner. Right, so also from Height Side, I was really pleased to find this at a good price. This is Roberta Flack and the album Feel Like Making Love. Beautiful stuff on Atlantic. Very richly orchestrated and produced. Got a wonderful sound. You can just kind of lose yourself in. Yeah, it's on Atlantic. An intriguing looking inner. I just saw out of the corner of my eye there, which I think needs to be shared. Oh, okay. Isn't that beautiful? Oh, to own all those records, eh? Her fifth solo album from 1975. It was produced by Roberta herself under the pseudonym Rubina Flake. Not sure why she had to use a pseudonym, but she did. Great album, absolutely love it. It contains the song Mr. Magic, which Grover Washington Jr. did that, didn't he? In fact, it's the title of one of his albums, isn't it? Feeling That Glow. Yeah, it's definitely a kind of lighter candle type record. Also from Height Side, grabbed a copy of Linda Ronstadt and Simple Dreams. Still trying to kind of orientate myself with her back catalogue. Don't know a great deal about her. This album was produced by Peter Asher. Contains the most beautiful photograph. Side. This was a huge album apparently, and it knocked Rumours by Fleetwood Mac off the #1 slot in, was it 1977, and then went on to stay at #1 for I think it was 5 weeks. So got a nice custom label. It's 3 from Oxfam, and I grabbed this. This was a bargain actually. I found this in Oxfam, and I think it was priced at maybe £2. This is Soul Spin by the Four Tops, with a kind of cover art which is guaranteed to make you smile, on Tamla Motown. Let's have a look. It's always worth having a look at your Tamlas, isn't it? Show us your tamblers. Their 8th album, 1969, and it contains a version of California Dreamin' and Got to Get You Into My Life, that was it, by the Beatles. So, nice find. On a similar theme, trying to beef up the Motown Chartbusters collection, picked up number 5. Great lineup of stuff on this one. You've got, you know, Tears of a Clown, Edwin Starr, War, I'll Be There by the Jackson 5, all sorts of lovely stuff. Again, black Tamla, very fetching cover of our Diana there. Motown Chartbusters. Check out my video on Motown Chartbusters albums if you haven't already. I'll put the link up there somewhere. I've got volume 1 of this and I didn't realise that there was a volume 2, but again from Oxfam. This is a nice blues comp, The Great Blues Men, volume 2, featuring Mississippi John Hurt, Mississippi Fred McDowell, Son House, Skip James, John Lee Hooker. Talk about a gallery of legendary people. Oops, there we go. So that was nice to pick up. I don't pick up a lot of blues anymore. I used to pick up a lot more. I did grab one at the Leeds meetup the other week, which I need to show. My local Oxfam shop has a little collection of Australian LPs. They've got Hunters and Gatherers and a couple of other things that are a bit too pricey for me. But I did grab this one. This is The Sound of Sydney, Volume 2, according to the jacket. I started playing the album and it was a bit odd because I couldn't match up the kind of songs and the lyrics to what the titles of the songs are, and I quickly put 2 and 2 together and realised in fact what I've got here is The Sound of Sydney Volume 1, which is in the sleeve of The Sound of Sydney Volume 2. So if I had bought Volume 2 I'd have had tracks by the Mustard Club and the Snorkels and the Leftovers and Bobby Socks and Big Red Tractor and Trench Gashes. Never heard of any of these people, but what I actually got is a great album, some really good kind of edgy sort of new wavy, guitar-y, Gang of Four-y kind of stuff, you know, really good. But unfortunately the label only contains song titles, it doesn't contain the names of the bands. So I'm going to have to go on to Google and kind of, you know, try and find this record and then type it all out and just kind of have it inside the record. But never mind, it's got a good very messy kind of inner there with lots of punkish liner notes. Okay, so I'll take my leave. Have a great week or weekend. Not sure when I'm going to upload this video, but I'll see you all soon. Thanks for watching. Take care. Bye bye.